Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to bestow the 2018 Liberty Medal. And I now invite Vice President Biden and Doug DeVos, Chair of the National Constitution Center, to join me in the presentation. President George W. Bush and Mrs. Laura Bush, for supporting America's veterans and the sacrifices they have made to provide for the common defense and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, for honoring that sacrifice and service by helping America's veterans in their transition to civilian life despite the visible and invisible wounds of war, for your work with Gold Star families and others who care for those who defend our freedom, and for inspiring all Americans to educate themselves about the principles of freedom and preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. It is the National Constitution Center's honor to award you the 2018 Liberty Medal. And it's now my honor to invite to the podium the first of our 2018 Liberty Medal winners, Mrs. Laura Bush.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Thank you very much, Jeffrey, and thank you, Vice President Biden, and thank you very much, Doug DeVos. Thank you all for this honor. And thank you for hosting George and me at the National Constitution Center today. Thanks to Rod Rodriguez and to Leslie Zimmerman and to all the veterans and active military here today. Thank you for your distinguished service to our country. President Bush and I are retired now, so we want to spend our afterlife dedicated to the programs of the George W. Bush Institute, including and especially our Military Service Initiative. The Military Service Initiative honors the men and women who've served our country. We're working with them to develop the leadership skills and the tools they need to transition successfully to civilian life. Since 2011, President Bush has hosted veterans at the Warrior Open Golf Tournament in Dallas and the Warrior 100K bike ride at our ranch in Crawford. At these events, George and I are inspired by the strength and the determination of our veterans. While George is watching chips and putts or riding with the Warriors, I like to spend time with the spouses and caregivers who accompany their warriors to Texas. These are the ones who care for the family and manage the home while our servicemen and women are deployed. They help their kids with the homework. They oversee the family finances, and they pray that their husbands or wives in uniform return home safely. Master Sergeant Rocky Arena and his wife Marlene joined us at our ranch in 2017 for the Warrior 100 bike ride. When Marlene talked about Rocky's years of service in the Air Force, she said, "I say we served for 25 years. I lived every deployment with Rocky, every trial and tribulation, so that the day I said yes to him, I didn't realize the impact that his service was going to have on me. This is the reason it's so important to make sure that while our servicemen and women receive the support they need when they come home, that we care for their spouses and families too. November is National Family Caregivers Month. So today, on Veterans Day, we must consider how we can help the caregivers now and in the future. There are over 4 million post 9/11 veterans and more than 1 million men and women who are caring for these post 9/11 veterans. And of course, all any caregiver wants is for his or her family to be in good physical and mental health. As veterans transition to civilian life, visible wounds, post-traumatic stress, and lack of stability may make veterans more susceptible to issues like depression and addiction. And of course, when one family member suffers, the entire family suffers, leading to an increase in the risk of behavioral issues and anxiety and depression in military children. Just as veterans need good health care when they return home, caregivers need access to quality care for themselves and for their children. 15% of military caregivers spend 40 hours a week caring for their veteran, and they often spend more hours caring for their children when child care is unavailable. As a result of caregiving, 48% of post 9/11 caregivers have been forced to take unpaid time off from work, and 28% have had to quit working entirely. With these statistics, it's not surprising that many caregivers report that caregiving has caused financial strain. Anne Marie Craig joined us at the Bush Institute last month for our Stand To Veteran Leadership Program. Anne Marie is a military caregiver and one of 33 scholars in our inaugural Stand To Veteran Leadership class. Anne Marie's husband is an Army Special Operations Forces veteran, and they have 3 children. For many years, Anne Marie worked for the Department of Defense and Intelligence community, but as she watched service members, including her husband, return home, she was inspired to do more. In 2012, she co-founded the Commit Foundation to help veterans translate their skills into successful roles and careers for their service. Anne Marie said, "This work has been my passion, and it's the product of my family's journey with traumatic brain injury. I navigated services as I worked to heal my husband and the many others I met along the way." During a conversation about caregivers last month, she told the Stand To class, "There's a group of us that shows up instead of walking out, that builds rather than tears down, and that waters the plants and tends the garden. Our military spouses and caregivers do just that. They tend the gardens at home, creating and maintaining a nurturing place to take care of their loved ones. They have the same priorities as the rest of us, and they have them with more difficulties and obstacles. It reminds me of the old line, Ginger Rogers did everything Fred Astaire did, but she did it backwards and in high heels." So to all of the government programs, corporate and nonprofit communities and individuals working to improve veteran transition, I ask that you consider how you can support the hidden heroes and the loved ones who also serve our country. George and I are forever thankful for the brave men and women who volunteer to defend our country. Our military strength is the strength of our nation. Our service members are the strength of our military, and our caregivers are the strength of our veterans and wounded warriors. Their devotion to our men and women in uniform and their commitment to their marriage, their family, and to our country is an inspiration to us all. Now I'd like to introduce the former Commander-in-Chief, my husband, President George W. Bush.
Thank you all. Thank you. Sit down. Thank you all. Thank you, Laura. Laura was a fabulous First Lady. I one time said that and the crowd went wild, then I realized my mother was sitting on the front row. She's also a fabulous advocate for our military spouses and caregivers. Mr. Vice President, it's great to be in your presence. Doug DeVos, Jeff Rosen, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. I am incredibly proud, along with Laura, to receive the Liberty Medal. And I thank the National Constitution Center and the members of its board for this high honor. Laura and I are the second and third members of our family to have received this award. The most deserving, of course, was the first. And I'm proud to follow in my dad's footsteps once again. In case you're wondering, he's doing all right these days, and he sends his greetings. He is 94 years old, and his parachuting adventures are now officially behind him. At least that's what we keep telling him. Both my dad and my brother Jeb once served as the chairman of the National Constitution Center, a position that is now held by Vice President Biden. Joe, you're looking good. Yeah, it's amazing what happens when you get out of office. I really appreciate your good spirit in presenting this award. I thank you for your public service, and I wish you all the very best. Joe and I, share a love of liberty. To that end, as Joe mentioned, the Bush Institute is partnering with the Penn Biden Center and the Freedom House on a project to reaffirm support for democracy, both at home and abroad. We aim to inspire men and women in the darkest corners of the world and instruct a rising generation on the beauty and the possibility of free societies. When the Vice President was here last year to bestow this same award, the recipient was a man who dedicated his life to the cause of liberty, a man we admire and miss. And who better to keep close in memory on Veterans Day than our friend John McCain. John's passing this summer was an occasion to recall the kind of bravery and fortitude we have always counted on in the armed services of the United States. This is a man who had been to the darkest places as a prisoner of war. He returned as a witness to the unbreakable bonds of loyalty and comradeship amongst those who sacrificed for our country. As for the privilege of serving, John said on this stage last year, he was repaid 1,000 times over. It was sure a modest way of looking at it. But that's how it is with so many men and women who have worn the uniform. And often the humility runs deepest in the ones who gave the most. I've been fortunate to meet thousands of these patriots. And what most of them want to tell me is this: they were proud to serve, and they'd do it again. Veterans Day is the appropriate time to honor them. 1918, on the 11th day of the 11th month, an armistice ended the Great War. News of a quiet Western Front prompted celebrations all around the world on this very day 100 years ago. It was a moment of hope that the light of liberty could never be extinguished. Every November 11th since, we've shown our appreciation to all those who've stepped forward to take an oath, to live by a code of conduct, and accept the discipline of military life, a discipline that brought out the best and that which was in them. We recall what it means to put country above self, ready if the orders to come to face war and everything that goes with it. We think of all the American soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who never lived to be called veterans, and the warfighters who came home to face new struggles as wounded veterans. By far the gravest responsibility any president has is to be a commander-in-chief, leading the most formidable, courageous, selfless collection of men and women you will find anywhere. And in the near decade since Laura and I left the White House, we've had the further honor of knowing so many veterans as friends, especially those who served or enlisted after September the 11th, 2001. The Bush Institute on the campus of Southern Methodist University in Dallas, we're helping warriors and their families keep moving forward in life. The transition can be extremely tough for our vets. Some come home with visible and invisible wounds of war. Others feel disconnected from their communities or miss the sense of purpose they found in their military career. We are helping them with health care, career opportunities, and the fellowship of other veterans. These men and women are tremendous national assets, and they have so much more to give to our country. With us tonight are members of the Bush Institute's Warrior Wellness Alliance. It's a project we started to get more warriors the quality, personalized care they need and deserve for invisible wounds of war like post-traumatic stress, and traumatic brain injury. Laura and I joined some of these partners at Point Breeze neighborhood earlier today for a service project where we planted trees in a public park. Travis Manion Foundation was there. The mission continues. Team Rubicon, Team Red, White, and Blue. It is always a joy to be with our veterans and to see them helping each other as they help the communities in which they live. As you've heard, not only do we produce programs, but we host the Warrior Open Golf Tournament and the W100K mountain bike ride. These outings underscore the importance of sports as a rehabilitation component for some vets, and they offer a support network for continued recovery. The inspiration they provide for each other and for those of us there is far greater than anything we could offer them. I aim to keep doing it. I aim to keep riding mountain bikes until my bike breaks down or my body. I count these friendships among the great blessings of my life. And I have painted quite a few of them. You may have heard that I took up painting a while back. And I'm pleased to say that some of my paintings are on public display. If you happen to go to an art museum where they are, just look for the sign that says Gallery of the Masters and go the other way. The good news is even my toughest critic says I'm kind of improving. You know, I think the turning point may have been when I began the paintings for my book, Portraits of Courage. The participants of our mountain bike rides and golf tournaments have formed a group known as Team 43. And I wanted to capture at least something of their resilience and greatness of heart on canvas. I painted 98 of these remarkable men and women and recorded their stories. You've heard from two of my subjects tonight, Leslie Zimmerman and Michael Rodriguez. I call him Rod. When I painted Leslie, I painted a compassionate woman who saw firsthand the horrors of war as a combat medic. I painted a fierce competitor on the mountain bike, which she has used to overcome the invisible wounds of war. I painted a veteran who has become a dedicated wife and mother, a selfless soul who's determined to help others. And I painted a friend. In capturing Rod, I wondered, how does an artist show the character of a courageous Green Beret who saw tough combat against terrorists, sustained repeated injuries, and worried only about missing the next deployment? A husband who struggled with post-traumatic stress as he helped his wonderful wife, also a veteran, deal with hers. A father whose son, born just a few years before 9/11, became the fifth generation of the Rodriguez family to serve in the military. Rod mentioned his son, Antonio, and the fact that his platoon, the mighty Taco Vipers, has just returned from Afghanistan, and we salute him, Rod. I'll leave it for better judges to decide how close my portraits came to the mark. I can assure you only that they were put on canvas with my utmost respect and care. And the message isn't just how honorable and heroic these men and women were in the past. It is that this new generation of veterans has the gifts to shine in whatever they do. They number in the hundreds of thousands, and no group of citizens is more vital to the future success of our country. Come to think of it, that's always been true of veterans, ever since a former Army general presided over the Constitutional Convention. There's no steadier influence in the life of our nation than the ones who have defended America and understand what it takes. What would the influence of America itself be today without the legacy of our veterans? We rightly speak of our nation as a force like no other in history, with liberating armies, moral commitments, and alliances to safeguard peaceful nations from every kind of enemy. Generations of statesmen and diplomats have done their part. Yet for our peaceful purposes in the world, nothing has ever mattered more than the skill and the courage and the sheer decency of those who've served in the United States military. For my part, to return the salute of such people was the highest of all the privileges that came with the office of President. And because the Liberty Medal is presented to Laura and me on Veterans Day, we will cherish it all the more. To us, it will always be a reminder of the people we deeply admire, including some very special men and women we know and love. I want to thank you very much. May God bless our veterans, and may God continue to bless the United States of America.